of serving the surrounding community. And there's nothing more important in my mind with regard to the community than assisting with our electoral process. And so we are very happy to be able to sponsor this debate and allow these candidates to present themselves to you. As the former general counsel of the university, I'm very familiar with the federal laws with regard to nonprofit institutions, and so just reiterating for all of you who may be wondering that the university is not allowed to take sides or to support any particular political party or candidate, and so we are presenting this debate on a very nonpartisan basis. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for choosing Monmouth University as the location for tonight's event, and hope you benefit from the discussion. Please welcome Susan Safaris of the League of Women Voters.
Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of the Township of Ocean, I am pleased to welcome you to this forum. Thank you to Monmouth University for hosting us in this beautiful venue this evening. The League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization, encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. We hope to provide you tonight with fact-based information about issues and the positions candidates have on these issues to help you make your own decisions and participate in the process. We thank you for coming, since your participation helps us further this mission. We also want to make you aware of 2 issues on the ballot in New Jersey. The League of Women Voters in New Jersey Education Fund has prepared analyses of these 2 questions, which are available on the table outside. The League of Women Voters never supports or opposes candidates for office or political parties. Any use of the League name or footage from tonight's forum in campaign materials, literature, or advertising of any kind, including internet, cable, or television, has not been authorized by the League. Monmouth University Television will be taping the proceedings for rebroadcast. We will have these posted on the League of Women Voters website. There's cards out there with our website. And also, as a courtesy to the candidates, please turn off all cell phones and other electronic devices now, and please refrain from taking photographs during the debate. We do have an official League photographer here tonight. At this time, I would like to introduce our moderator for this debate, Sharon Steinhorn. Per our League practice, she is from outside of this voting district. Sharon is a League-trained moderator and the president of the Western Monmouth League of Women Voters. She will introduce the candidates and explain the format of tonight's program. Thank you. Sharon?
Good evening. Thanks, Susan. It's my pleasure to explain the procedures, the format for tonight's debate, and then to introduce our candidates. I have written here to please turn off your cell phone. Susan already asked you to do that. The candidates have agreed that neither they nor their supporters or staff can photograph or record any of this to use in their campaign, so you've heard that twice. The forum has 3 parts now. The first is that each candidate will give a 2-minute opening statement, and the order of their presentation has been determined by random choosing of numbers. And next, after their opening 2-minute statement, we will take written questions from you. Many of you have already submitted them. Questions must be pertinent to the office being sought and cannot constitute a personal attack. Cards have been distributed, and if you need more, there are League members with cards. You may address a question to one or to all the candidates. In every case, all candidates will have the opportunity to respond if they so choose. The League is screening questions simply to avoid duplication. ensure a broad range of topics, and to make sure I can read your writing. So, each candidate will then have up to 1.5 minutes to reply to your questions. There will be no second chance to rebut a question already answered. We have timers sitting in the front row. Please hold up your yellow card for the Pam and Susan. We'll be timing. A yellow card means each candidate has 30 seconds left to respond to the question, and when the red card comes up, it means just finish your sentence, and I will ask you to stop if you haven't done it already. And finally, a 2-minute closing statement in reverse order of their openings. And each candidate will be allowed to sum up their positions and reasons for running. And so let me introduce the candidates. We'll introduce the Senate candidates first. Jennifer Beck, raise your hand when I'm in case Jennifer Beck is running for Senate of the New Jersey Legislature, and Vin Kopal is also running. You will be voting for one of those. We have 4 candidates for Assembly, and we'll just go Joanne Downey, Eric Hotelling, Robert Ashera, and Michael Whalen. And with that introduction, we'll let you explain, let you hear why they're running, what they've done in 2 minutes. And so first, Michael Whalen.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you everybody for coming out. It's a big turnout. I want to first by thanking Monmouth University and the League of Women Voters for putting this event on, and for hosting us. I think it's important to take away the party for a second and understand the man behind the name. My name is Michael Whalen, as it was said, and a little bit about me is I was raised by my single mother who worked about 60 hours a week. My father was a fireman in New York, FDNY line for 25 years. I was raised blue collar. I understood what it meant to earn a dollar, and more importantly, my family, what it meant to spend a dollar. I learned that nothing in life is given, it is earned. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Christian Brothers Academy, where I then went to Manhattan College and I studied government. When I got out, I started working in the insurance industry for the last 4 years, and I wanted to get more involved in my community. When I wanted to run a Red Bank, it's pretty funny. They said I was too young, I was in the wrong party. Red Bank was controlled by Democrats for 30 years, and the guy I was running against couldn't be beat. He was the head of the finance committee. And unfortunately, I won, and quickly started making an impact in Red Bank as the police and fire commissioner. I was able to strengthen the departments, help consolidate some of the volunteer companies. I was able to create new sources of revenue in Red Bank instead of just relying on the property taxes, but create a new source of revenue that was streamlined for years to come. I was able to also pass the first 2 redevelopment plans, spearhead the first 2 redevelopment plans in Red Bank's history. And then I was fortunate enough to also expand technology in Red Bank within our parking grid. And then Senator Beck approached me and asked me to run for the State Assembly, which I was humbled and honored to do so. And the reason why I said yes is because I believe that we are elected to be decision makers. And it's not always about doing what is popular, but we're elected to do what is right, and we are elected to do make the difficult decisions. And that's what I plan on doing when I get to Trenton with Senator Beck and Robert Sherrod, is go there. I'm not going to punt on issues. I'm not going to form commissions. I'm going to make the decisions that I was elected to make, because I believe that we're in is that red? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we will hear from Joanne Downey.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joanne Downey, and it's great to be here at Monmouth University. And I want to thank Monmouth as well as the League of Women Voters. And it's really nice to be here in front of all of you concerned citizens here in the state of New Jersey. And Eric and I have been proud to represent you since 2016 in the State Assembly, and we want to thank you for that opportunity. And we want to continue to be able to do that. And I want to tell you a little bit about myself, just to remind people why I've done this. I ran then, and I continue to run now, to be able to do more to really help the state of New Jersey. Because I know, just like everybody else, how not affordable it is. I went through it myself. I did all the right things. I grew up in Freehold Township. My parents were able to buy this beautiful 6-bedroom house for $60,000 in 1975. And I went to great schools, lived in a great place, in a safe environment. And my dad in the state police, I mean, everything was wonderful. We had a great life. I continued to go on to college, to Rutgers. I went to law school. And I continued on to get my master's in social work. I worked for the Attorney General's office, did all the right things. My husband's a history professor. He did all the right things. He went to Brown. And it took him 6 years to get a full-time job here in the state of New Jersey. It took us a tremendous amount of work to get back to Freehold Township to be able to afford a townhouse because of the property taxes. I have 2 little girls who are 7.5 and 6, and they go to the West Freehold School, elementary school, and it's beautiful. And I want everybody to be able to stay there. I want my kids to be able to continue there and breathe fresh air and have a great life and be safe, and I want us to be able to afford it. And I want all of you to do the same, and it's not a lot to ask. So I want to fight for everybody in the state of New Jersey, the veterans, our seniors, and all of us to have a great life here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Downey. And next we'll hear from Eric Hotelling.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be at such a wonderful venue here at Monmouth University. I am Eric Hotelling. I'm from Neptune Township, and I've been there my whole life. I met my wife 3 blocks away from me, and we got married and decided to live in Neptune, and we raised our 3 children there, 2 girls and a boy. And currently I have 7 grandchildren, 6 boys and 1 girl, so I have a lot at stake here. When my children were growing up, it's amazing how your children shape who you are and the things that you do and change you and make you into things that you are today. And I really value that when I was growing up with my children. I grew up as well, and it changed me. I got involved with a lot of things in my community, and I realized, I'm a community-based person. Next thing I know, I was coaching softball. I was coaching biddy basketball. I was a chairman of the recreation committee. All of a sudden, Little League came around. Next thing you know, I was a coach of Little League. I was on the executive board of Little League. I was the president of Little League. I was the district administrator of Little League. And every year we used to take our vacation in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and that's what our family did. And currently my daughter was in Williamsport this year to see the town, and she lives and played Little League as well. So, that's what kind of shaped me, the things that I've done. And, then I ran for the township committee in 2010, and 2011, 2012 was difficult. 2013, I was the mayor of Neptune, and I was mayor when we had to recover from Hurricane Sandy. It was a difficult time, but it was something that the township got through. But one of the things I did not like was the fact of what the state was doing to municipalities with the state aid and flat funding, and took away our energy tax receipts. And that was one of the things that really bothered me. It was money they took away from the township. So we ran for the state assembly in 2015. We were successful, and our job now is to work every day to make the state of New Jersey better and strengthen our municipalities and make sure that the residents of this town have what they need to be successful, and we will be there to make that happen.
Thank you. And Jennifer Beck, please, opening statement.
Thank you. Appreciate the league hosting us tonight, Susan and Sharon and Monmouth University. I have served you in the New Jersey State Senate for several terms now, and I believe I have worked effectively for residents of this district, no matter what town they're in, taking the guns out of the hands of domestic violence abusers, making sure that slumlords in Asbury, Newark, and across the state don't allow families to live with rats and cockroaches, fighting to make sure that Fort Monmouth is redeveloped. And I was honored to sponsor that legislation, and today 67% of that property has been leased, sold, or is out to bid. Securing $5 million for the dredging of Shark River, providing the sexual assault restraining order bill that allows sexual assault survivors to access a restraining order if their perpetrator is still stalking them. I fought to ban fracking in the state of New Jersey, and twice been able to defeat proposals for a liquid natural gas facility off of our coastline, one that was planned for Asbury, one that was planned for Long Branch. And I'm very proud to have voted on 13 different occasions to fund women's health, including an override of the governor on July 11th of 2011. But I would say one of my proudest moments was really just last week, as we secured almost $25 million for the expansion of Freehold Borough schools, which are overcrowded and underfunded. That effort has been 10 years in the making. I've been an advocate for the residents of this district, and I've been an effective advocate in delivering results. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we will hear from Vin Coppell.
Thank you. Like others here, I want to thank Monmouth University and the League of Women Voters for hosting this. It's wonderful to see so many people out today, no matter who you're supporting. Just the fact that you are engaged in this election is tremendous for our community. My name is Vin Gopal. I am 32 years old. I was born close by here at Jersey Shore Medical Center, grew up in Freehold, and I live in Long Branch right now. I've spent my entire life, with the exception of college, in Monmouth County, and I love everything Monmouth County has done for my family, myself, and my friends. I volunteered on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters. I also served as a board member for the Monmouth County Chamber of Commerce. I volunteered for years when I was growing up as a volunteer EMT for the Colts Neck and Freehold First Aid Squad, going on hundreds of 911 emergencies. I love so much of what Monmouth County has to offer. I worked here and decided to keep my business here, which I started 10 years ago. And we run a company out of Hazlitt and Tinton Falls, which has 16 employees. Like most of you in your homes, I watch every dollar that comes in and out of my business, and that's been my frustration with government. It doesn't really matter whether it's Chris Christie or John Corzine, Democrats or Republicans. I feel that government has failed us in many different ways. So while I've never held elected office, I volunteered as the Democratic chair here in Monmouth County, which you can imagine is not easy. Monmouth County is historically Republican, but we worked hard. We elected some great assembly members, some great mayors, and it was a great job that I enjoyed volunteer doing. I hope to have the opportunity to be your state senator in 21 days because I think the solutions we need really don't have to do with Democrats or Republicans. We've seen enough failure from both parties. We need people who are going to work across the aisle, move the ball forward, and see actual results. If we're going to lower property taxes, let's see results, not just see the same rhetoric year after year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And finally, we will hear an opening statement from Rob Ashera.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be back here at Monmouth. Actually, my dad worked here as a custodian in this building. I worked in the student center for a number of years, and my son graduated from here, so it's like old homecoming here. I wanted to talk first and foremost that I'm a husband and a father. I married my college sweetheart, Rose. She's here somewhere. 28 years ago, we got married. We met at Montclair State, got married, had 3 boys. We've been living in Ocean Township for the last 28 years. All 3 of my boys went through the Ocean Township School District. My dad, who I mentioned, is one of 16. My mom is one of 6. My dad had an all-brother semi-pro baseball team. There were 11 brothers, played for, you laugh, it's true. They played for 13 years from 1939 to 1952, and he taught me about teamwork. And I've tried to strive for everything I do to work on both sides and look at issues on both sides and putting teamwork together to get it done. That must have caught the eye of Ocean Township folks. After being on the board of directors for Little League and Cal Ripken, I was asked to run for the Board of Education. I did win, along with my running mates, and we were successful in improving the facilities. We were successful in getting additional funds to improve the education and give the students there the best possible education they could have. After that, I was asked to run on the town council by a member of the opposite party. I split the sides. It was 2-2, and I was the deciding third vote, if you will. But we've been able to get things done in Ocean Township as a nonpartisan party and want to do the same thing in Trenton. We were successful in keeping taxes down. We were able to lower the tax rate this year by 11% while improving services and building additional facilities for the community. I'm looking forward to running and have been very blessed to run with Senator Beck and Mike Whalen, and we look forward to taking your questions and answering them for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoever's phone is ringing, please turn it on.
That's the timer. And I'm trying.
Okay, let's get to the questions, because there are many, many questions. And I'll say right at the start that if your question doesn't ask, it's not because we didn't like it. You're going to run out of time, I can tell you that right now. So let's take the one that's on most people's minds. New Jersey has some of the highest property taxes in the nation. What, if anything, do you propose to lower property taxes? And I would like to let's start with Ms. Downey, and we'll go down the list, down the row, and then second question, we'll just start with a different person, and it'll be easier to keep track of it. Ms. Downey, property tax.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like I said in my opening, that was one of the things that concerned me the most, and especially walking door to door, knocking on people's doors and finding out people had to work 3 jobs to be able to stay in their home they've had for 30 or 40 years. So what we've been trying to do is we're attacking it from the biggest part of our property taxes, which is our school taxes. So Eric and I, before we got elected, we were trying to figure out a better way to do it. And we were very happy to be able to propose legislation that would create a commission, not just a commission that's just going to sit there and just hear things, a commission that will continue to be able to look at the school funding formula from 2008, which is now just about 10 years old, and doesn't fit our district anymore. And people kept saying, just apply the formula, then all their schools will be fairly funded. It doesn't work, because everything has changed. There are school districts that have grown dramatically in terms of their size, like Friel Borough. That's the reason why they didn't have enough money, and they've never been funded in all these years. And they're $9 billion, our schools are $9 billion short from when this governor started. And we need to do better with that, this rearranging, making sure that the school funding formula is fixed, and we actually account for all those things, including special ed costs, which are way high now. Even in districts like Ocean, Tinton Falls, and Eatontown, if you apply the formula, it goes up in terms of the money that they have to put in themselves, and they lose money from the state. We don't want that. So we are looking at making it more fair, and this commission will continue to go, and it will be a continuing commission. It will not end.
Thank you. Same question about property tax, Mr. Gopal.
Thank you. As the Assemblywoman said, school funding is an important issue. It's important to know that the governor and legislature has gutted over $8 billion since the funding formula was instituted in 2009 that has just not been funded. Outside of that, New Jersey starts to need to start looking on how we can start cutting. And one of the big issues that I've continued to talk about, and independent studies have shown how much money we can save, is the issue of consolidation and shared services. New Jersey has 565 towns, over 600 school districts, hundreds of authorities and agencies, and it's really at a point that we need to change. A mayor in our district who supports us and has been supporting a lot of our plans is the mayor of Lock Harbor, population of 194 residents, who says his town cannot survive anymore. They're paying $25,000 a year in property taxes. So we want to look at the 100 smallest towns in the state, which populations of 2,000 people or less, and see how we can start consolidating. Jersey City recently merged its utility authority and its parking authority, saving over $5 million for taxpayers. Hamilton Township is right now going through merging all of its fire districts into one. They're going to save $600,000 just on salaries of those volunteer fire district commissioners. There is so much New Jersey can do in the years ahead that both parties have failed us ultimately. And I believe that we have to start looking seriously. It's what we do, it's what I do in my business. I know it's what you do in your households. And I think both parties have failed us in this, and it's something we need to look forward towards.
Thank you. Still on the same subject, Mr. Hotel.
Thank you. I think one of the things we need to do really is take a harder look at shared services and make sure that our municipalities are sharing services. It's not only with other towns, but it's also with school boards. Sharing the cost of gasoline and sharing the cost of salt and all the things that a municipality needs. But to share that and to make maybe one town a hub for different towns who can come in and work with that to really keep our costs down in municipalities. Joanne and I have also introduced legislation, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, that in the Monmouth County, we are a town that is our house is evaluated almost every other year, and there's not a lot of people that know about what the evaluation process is all about. So the bill that we have makes sure that Monmouth County and each municipality on the website has to put on their website all that they need to know about the tax evaluation process and the assessment process, and let them know that they have the option to, or the ability to appeal that assessment that is so very crucial to them. Also, we have submitted legislation that on the tax bill, when you get it, it has to be in bold print there when your last date for your tax appeal is, because a lot of people don't understand the tax appeal process, and that is one way that they can save money. And we're trying to give our residents the opportunity where they can help themselves as well, while the state is trying to do a lot of the things that we need to do.
Thank you. Mr. O'Shea.
Thank you, Sharon. School funding seems to be the top of everybody's list on how to save money, and it's certainly on the top of mine. I served on the school board for 4 years in Ocean Township, and we did our best, even when the Democratic legislature was cutting our funding, to be able to provide the services for the students in Ocean Township. One of the biggest things is school funding, and we need to look, and the legislature needs to take action on the ruling that the courts made in 1985 called the Abbott ruling. The Abbott districts, right now, there's 31 districts in the state of New Jersey. They get 50% of all the state aid. There's 569 other districts that share the other 50%. No matter what math you do, that's not fair. We need to make that equitable. We need to make it fair. We need to make sure that politics stays out of it because it's for our students and our children. We need to look at unpaid sick leave. You have people that are retiring with $400,000, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 checks because they've been able to bank sick leave. I work for a private company. I get a certain number of sick days per year. I either use them or I lose them. Public employees, the state does not do this, but there are still towns and public employees that still are able to bank those. And the biggest thing is cost. We need to cut costs. We need to be able to make the tough decisions, and we need to be able to tell people that unfortunately some things are not going to be able to continue the way they are if the entire state is going to be able to benefit.
Thank you. Ms. Beck?
Sure, so I think there are three major issues that have to be tackled in regards to property taxes. One is the cost of our health benefits going up 18 to 22% a year. The Neptune Education Association and their superintendent had informed me that their average family plan is $40,000 a year. It's unaffordable for our teachers, it's unaffordable for our taxpayers. I have bills in to reform it, so do some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, but we have to stop talking and we have to start doing. The second is school funding. This year we had a significant and heated debate over cuts to Monmouth and Ocean County. I was somewhat surprised that Eric and Joanne voted for those cuts, but that said, many of our school districts overpay locally and their local fair share, and the state also underfunds them. And so what happens is this ongoing downward spiral of people are overpaying locally and the state's not. So we have to invest in high enrollment growth districts and districts that are overpaying by a significant degree locally. And the cuts that were made in 2010 were made because, unfortunately, Governor Corzine left the state in a very difficult place, and we were about $3 billion short in the state budget that year. But that said, this is a topical issue. We will debate this heavily in the year ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen?
Thank you. When it comes to the issue of property tax, I think sometimes you have to take a step back and look at things holistically. That comes in three components or three facets. You have to cut, grow, and expand. Ways to cut, obviously, as the panel has said, is through shared services and consolidation. With Mayor returning from Tin Falls in the audience here, we shared impound service with Red Bank. Ways to cut, I was able to successfully cut $70,000 from the Red Bank police budget with negotiations with the police chief about holding off on promotions. You have to look at pension reform, health benefit reform, as Robert Sharon and Senator Rebecca said, taking pensions away from corrupt officials. And growing means you have to create wealth. Well, unfortunately, my opponents just want to redistribute wealth. And redistributing wealth and growing and creating wealth are two completely different philosophies about how to grow the economy. So I want to create wealth, not just redistribute it. And like I said, expand technology. New Jersey has to evolve. Because you don't evolve, you don't change, you get left behind. And unfortunately, New Jersey is getting left behind, so it's something we really need to look forward to. Thank you.
Thank you. On state issues, the next question sort of follows. What about the state pension system? It's recently been named the worst funded state retirement plan in the country and is arguably one of the largest financial problems we have. I'm going to start at the other end with Mr. Whalen. How do you propose to address the state's pension issues?
I think to address the pensions, you also want to look out into the future, right? So I think for all new hires, they have to be on some type of 401k plan like you have it in the private sector. I think that's a huge portion of it. And I was actually reading on Facebook this week, my opponents had a post that said, part-time workers shouldn't get 401k plans. Well, that's been the case since 2011, so I don't know if we're paying attention or not to what's being passed in the legislature, but that's already been excluded. Part-time employees are excluded from pensions since 2011, but I think new hires are going to have to go to some 401k based plan like you have it in the private sector.
Thank you. Coming back around, Ms. Downey.
The pensions are something we made a commitment to do for a lot of people, for state workers. And the thing is that when we owe an obligation, we have to pay an obligation, because if you don't, you get downgraded like we have 11 times in this state, which makes the state much more expensive, just like if you don't pay your credit cards or other debts. So we are obligated, and they've earned it, and we need to pay it. And we can pay it. And you know what we have? We have put in our budget this last number of years, and I know in our years that we've been, the 1 year that we've been there, that we put in there, in that budget, the line item for the pensions to be fully funded. That was cut out by the governor. So we can do it. The money was there. It's not being done. Then we funded, we wanted to make sure there were quarterly payments. We can do that, and we will support any legislation to do that. In the future, we might have to look at different things to see how we can better afford everything, but that also means throughout the state, and that's why we have a bill that became law about unspent funds, to make sure that from now on, when a commission, if they have more money, the department's commissioners have to report back to the legislature, because even part of the legislature, I've noticed, we don't always know where the money is. We need to know where the money is, so we'll find it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goepel?
Yeah, this is an important question, but I have to say what I heard from the other side is a little discouraging, and I obviously disagree with it. To suggest to put police officers, future police officers and firefighters on a 401k plan, these people risk their lives each and every day, whether they're a police officer in Tinton Falls or Asbury Park or Long Branch, and they go out and their families have to worry about them each and every day, whether they come home or not, and to suggest putting them into a 401k plan, I think is not right to them. I think the state needs to look towards consolidation, shared services, how we're going to cut government. The fact that a town and a school board may have the same healthcare broker, and one has 100 employees and the other has 40, and they can't negotiate on behalf of 140. We need to start looking at things on how we can actually start cutting this budget, not increasing taxes, but where we can cut with a bloated budget of 565 towns, 700 plus authorities and school districts and agencies, instead of saying that we're going to hurt police officers and teachers.
Thank you. Mr. Hoteling?
Thank you. The pensions are, a real problem only because the state hasn't been paying into the pension. It's not the workers' fault that the state hasn't been doing that. It's just a decision that's been made by the legislature, by our governor. The Assembly and the Senate always put money in the budget for that, but the governor always redlines that out. So, how can we make our fair pension payment when they don't want to pay it? They don't want to pay it. It's a negotiated item that's in that they've worked for, and I don't understand why the state doesn't feel that they owe that money to them. It's something that the state and the governors have in the past used that money for whatever desires that they've had, and we cannot continue to do that. And as we move forward, we just need to make sure we do the quarterly. We're doing the quarterly payments now. That has changed this year. We've also put the state lottery money going into the pension every year. So we're making it so that the pension payment has to be made every year. It's something that the state is obligated to do, and we have our workers that we need to look out for that have negotiated this. So we have to keep our end up.
Thank you. Mr. Sharon?
In 2002, the state pension program was at 101% of funding. That was the last time the Republicans had the House and the Assembly and the Senate. Since that time, we've had both Republican and Democratic governors, but the consistent part of that is a Democratic legislature. Since that time, we are at now 56% of funding. But from 2002, in the next 4 years, we were already down 65% of the funding, and that was from a Democratic legislature. We need to fund this properly, and we need to be able to look at it holistically and be able to say that, yes, the police and the fire are important, but I am concerned about them, because if this fund's not there, to Mr. Whalen's suggestion about a 401k, there's more of a guarantee, at least right now, that they're going to get funding from that than they are from the pension in New Jersey. So that is a recommendation that I wholeheartedly support. We need to look at it. We need to make it fair. I am in support of the quarterly payments. I think that makes sense. Don't wait until the end. Let's put the payments in there so that they can raise additional funds, so that the interest earned will be able to pay down some of that overall debt that we have. But it's not a simple issue, and it does need to be looked at, but those are some of the suggestions I have.
Thank you. Ms. Beck?
So, there were 2 state budgets that raised taxes, income tax, corporate business tax, and eliminated all grants to new businesses we are trying to attract to the state of New Jersey to raise $1 billion to try to make a pension payment. So when the Assemblywoman says we put it in the budget and they didn't pass it, no, what happened was no one voted for 3 huge tax increases. So that's just as a point of clarification. We have a moral obligation to fund the pensions. It's $49 billion underfunded right now. State employees, by the way, currently are only 37% funded. Teachers are only 46% funded. The health liability is $67 billion. You can't fund that without some reform. We do have a moral obligation to our public employees, 100%. And we've been increasing the pension payment each and every year by about 1/10. Matter of fact, the last 4 governors have not put as much into this pension system as the legislature and this governor have in the last several years. So we do have an obligation, but you're going to have reforms. And in the Asbury Park Press editorial board meeting, I'm fairly sure my opponent said that we had to look at 401ks. So he caught me off guard when he said we shouldn't.
Okay, thank you. Change of subject. Several questions on environment and energy, and let's see if we can put them together. How can New Jersey meet our energy needs while protecting our environment? And many of laws can be reversed, but we can't reverse the environment. So what will you be doing to protect our water, air, and soil, and all our natural resources? And we will start with Mr. Gopel.
Thank you. This is obviously an important issue. I live in Long Branch, and the shore is important. We have, I sit in the front row, Congressman Frank Pallone, who's championed this issue and championed the environment. As a state senator, I will do everything we can to protect our air and drinking water. There's been legislation out there trying to privatize, under the Christie administration, privatize our water systems. I think that's a terrible idea. I think we need to re-enter RGGI. I think we need to stand up against offshore drilling, which could happen at the federal level now off our beautiful Atlantic coast. And I think all those things are very important. Just on responding to that last question, I do support 401ks for certain employees. I don't think police officers are a good idea. I see our Monmouth County Sheriff is in the audience here. I'm sure he wouldn't like to see future police officers in his academy getting a 401k instead of a salary. So I don't think that's something that's very important to the future of our security of our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hotelling?
Thank you. The environment, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm a member of the Deal Lake Commission. I've been on that for 4 years and very passionate about what goes on in our environment and taking the steps that we need to do as a state. And, we need to get everybody involved with that because it's our obligation really to leave this earth better than what we found it. And I think we need to work on that every day. Green energy is a way to go. Fossil fuels really is something that we need to start looking beyond. And certainly I would say that coal really is not the solution for the future, and that's really would be taking us a few steps backwards. And I think the state of New Jersey now, we don't have any coal burning plants at all in our state, so we're moving away from that. That's a great thing to do, but we need to move forward with wind turbines, solar panels, and try to make our state as green as we can. And that's what I also agree with Vin about no offshore drilling and keeping our oceans clean, because right now, our congressman, we have some of the cleanest oceans, and my wife always complains about the fact there's no more sea glass in the ocean, so I just want to congratulate you on that. So, thank you.
Yes, Mr. O'Shea.
Thank you. I was born in Long Branch. I grew up in Oceanport, so I spent a lot of days during the summer and sometimes in the winter at the beach. So the Jersey Shore is something that I've grown up in and at and around, and thoroughly want to enjoy it and continue to enjoy it and let my kids and their grandkids continue to enjoy it. I would totally be opposed to any type of fracking in New Jersey or any transport of any fracking materials through New Jersey. I would be against offshore drilling. I'd like to look at the windmill proposals off the shore. There's pros and cons to that. Candidly, I don't have an opinion on that one yet, but I will look into that one. As far as RGGI, I don't want other states or other communities or other bodies making decisions for New Jersey. I think we're big boys. If the legislature stepped up, we could make our own decisions. We don't need to be part of another organization or another group that will require us to do things that we don't want to do. New Jersey can make their decisions on their own, and the legislature needs to make that for us. And Deal Lake is, the biggest portion of Deal Lake is in Ocean Township. Deal Lake Commission just received a nice grant to put a new flume in on the Asbury Park side of the lake. Ocean Township is actually fronting that bill so that can take place. So we're very sensitive to that. We certainly want to see Deal Lake. We want to see Deal Lake get back to the days when you were able to swim in it.
Thank you, Ms. Beck.
Thank you. So I had an opportunity to serve on the Senate Environment Committee for a number of years, and I'm proud to have worked with Senator Bob Smith to pass one of the strongest nitrogen limitations on fertilizer. And fertilizer often causes algae growth in our rivers and streams. Barnegat Bay is probably our prime example. That is now a national model for the country. I'm obviously opposed to offshore drilling. I've been out on this issue for a couple months now and have a resolution in expressing that opposition and led the effort to stop the liquid natural gas facilities off our coast, as I said in my opening. I've been very involved locally with Lake Toponimus and also with the Shark River, trying to make sure they get what they need to maintain those waterways through grant dollars with the Department of Environmental Protection. And I did sponsor, was the prime sponsor and author of legislation to ban fracking in the state of New Jersey, which was vetoed by the governor, and I had committed to overriding him on that issue, but it was never posted for an override vote. Thank you.
Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. I as well am against fracking, offshore drilling. I think what Eric had said is true. I mean, the environment is the one thing that we leave to the next generation. For the next group of leaders and families, and I think you have to preserve it the best way you can. I think it's very important, but unfortunately I have to jump back to something that Vin Gopal said about that I didn't care or about the police and fire, that they'd come home. I was somebody growing up that wasn't sure if my father would come home. Like I said, I would sleep at the firehouse in New York, and they'd go up on a call at 2, 3 in the morning, and of course my concern was always that they would come back to the firehouse. Every other Whalen was NYPD, was a police officer in Manhattan. I only come from a family of cops and firemen, but when that's the biggest line item in every single budget, there is a responsibility to look at that, and no one mentioned the 2% arbitration cap, but that should be permanently implemented. There are sacrifices that we all have to make, and that is something that I'm willing to look at, but it's nothing to do with a negative impact or a negative feeling towards police and fire, since that's my entire family is police, fire, that's the blue-collar world that I was brought up into, but we have a responsibility to look further into it.
Thank you. Ms. Downey.
Thank you. You know, I want to just mention that, of course, whenever I talk about my girls, we need to make sure, like all of our children, all of us can breathe fresh air and have clean water to drink. And so we've been doing things in the legislature to make sure we protect that, including protecting testing for lead in our water. But one of the things I want to go back to is I want us to get back to Reggie, to the regional greenhouse gas initiative, and why it's important. You know what? We're not just big boys. We're adults, men and women, and we make decisions based on cooperative efforts as a team. So being by ourselves, New Jersey is not in a bubble. Our emissions do escape New Jersey, and others come here. And we need to work together to make it a cleaner, safer place for everybody. And when you don't work together, there are problems. That's why there's the Paris Climate Accord. And that's why that's a great thing to get involved in. I want to make every effort for New Jersey to get back to that. Because over a 5-year plan, it's to make sure our temperatures don't continue to go up. And we're going to continue to do better with that. The other things are beaches. I'm against offshore drilling. We have to make sure that we protect our beautiful place because that's our tourism. Those are our jobs. Those are the places where we enjoy for recreation. We want our kids to be able to go on the water. We want to continue to do good things with that. And there's also making sure that we protect ourselves from lead paint. I want to make sure that's also in there. Not just lead in the water, and because we have houses that still have lead paint that are back from the 70s, and we need to protect our children. We'll do every effort to make those initiatives go happen in the state.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. We're going to start with Ms. Beck this time. We've been talking about state issues. This is District 11. You're all running for office to represent this district. What do you consider this district's #1 priority that you would like to address over the next 2 or 3 years?
There is no doubt that this debate over school funding is going to be our highest priority. And whether or not you happen to have children in our public schools, the proposal to cut $35 million out of our schools is a huge property tax issue. It would force mass layoffs, it would harm our children, and it would take many school districts where local property taxpayers are already overpaying and force them to pay an awful lot more. An example would be Ocean Township. They already pay in their local fair share over $9 million more than the state says they have to. And they are poised to lose another $3 million. That is a debate we are going to have in real time next year, and it is a pressing issue for every resident of Monmouth County.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen?
Sorry. I can't touch it. I'm sorry. Instead of just, I agree with the senator that the biggest issue District 11 is school funding, but instead of just kind of repeating what the senator said, I'm going to take it to something that's the result of bad school funding or not fairly funding our schools is higher property taxes, which results into the mass exodus. So we have a problem here that millennials aren't buying their first homes here. Millennials aren't starting families here. They're not buying homes. They're not starting businesses. And you have that same problem with the older generation, is that the senior citizens now aren't staying in New Jersey, and especially as I'm knocking on doors, there are families in Eatontown, in Tinton Falls, Long Branch, all over that are saying all families can't afford to stay here. And they would love it. It's actually said, I was knocking on a door in Eatontown, and I was talking to a gentleman who said, if I could take my entire family with me, my kids and my grandchildren with me, I would, and he's going to suffer and stay in District 11 because he doesn't want to leave his grandchildren, but he said if I could, I would leave. So if we can't keep the senior citizens who deserve to stay in their homes, that they've been paying taxes for decades in New Jersey, and you can't get the younger generation to commit to starting a family and putting down their roots here, you're creating a dangerous bubble and a gap for the middle, if you're not a millennial, not a senior citizen. So I think that's probably the biggest issue, which is a result of the school funding formula that we have.
Thank you. Ms. Downing?
Well, I still go back to the school funding again. I hate to repeat, but it is the major issue that's going to happen because we have to get that right. We have to start really making having long-term solutions. And that's why we were upset, Eric and I, when our bill for this commission that was going to be a long-term solution to watch every district and make sure every district gets the money it needs and to make sure that they get their special needs costs taken care of and their transportation costs and everything else that they so desperately want and need in their schools, and they deserve it according to our Constitution for that thorough and efficient education. And we could not get our bill because that was politics playing, and that wasn't policy. And we need to get the politics out of it, and that's what our bill is about, getting the politics out of it. It's about taking legislators out of it and making sure that legislators aren't worrying about their couple towns in their district instead of the whole state, and making sure that the people who are best able to make those decisions, like NJEA people, school board people, finance people, are the ones making those decisions and making sure that we watch from year to year and we're more responsible. Just like I think we need to go back to the budget and start from zero and start being more responsible like we do in a household so that we can all live here, like Mr. Whalen was saying, because I agree. Seniors are leaving, people who go to school don't come back, and families cannot start, and we want that to be changed here. And Eric and I have done many things to be able to stop all of that, and we'll continue to do that in the legislature when given that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goepel?
Thank you. Senator Beck and I recently had an interview on NJTV, Michael Aaron, and we brought up the consolidation issue, and she responded, this is not a new issue, this is something we've been talking about for a long time. I completely agree with her. She's been in office now for 18 years, and I've watched elected officials in both parties talk about it, but until the governor and the legislature leads on this issue and starts looking at how we can share costs and share services, we are going to be in trouble. Take, for example, Lake Como, which has an elected school board, has a superintendent consultant, has a board secretary, and has 0 schools in their school district. This is a problem all throughout New Jersey. And yes, home rule has been an unhealthy addiction for too long, and you're going to have some angry police chiefs, and you're going to have some angry superintendents. You're going to have a bunch of other angry people, but we have to tackle this. And we're talking about towns, 2,000 people and under. We're talking about the value of the Middletown Sewer Authority and all these other utility authorities and agencies that exist all over New Jersey and tackling them head on. And we have not seen that in either party, Corzine or Christie, even touch this, and I think that's a disgrace.
Thank you. Mr. Mr. Hoteling.
Thank you. I would have to say that the biggest thing that we have come across, besides property taxes is one of them, but the biggest thing that affects so many is the school funding, what goes on in municipalities. And, you know, we do have a bill in there, our school funding reform, and it is designed really to take a look at what's going on with school funding. And the bill actually we have still needs to be modified because there's so many issues that go into a school and to teaching now. I mean, when I went to school way back when, I mean, 2 + 2 = 4, it was a very simple way to get there. But right now, it's a very complicated process. And the children we have in school now, there's a lot of them that have very special needs. Special need children cost a whole lot more to educate than a regular child without special needs, and a lot of stuff, social and emotional issues that are very part of what goes on in our school system today. So these are all things that are really part of a school funding plan that you have to have and you have to take into consideration. And that's some of the things that we want to do with our school funding plan. We want to be able to make sure that we look at here. I'm not an educator, I'm a legislator, I'm an electrician actually. So what we want is people that know what goes on with the school funding, that know the schools and know what the education process is all about. We want their strong input in what the state needs to fix our school funding plans.
Thank you. And lastly, about what District 11 priority, Mr. O'Shea.
I think we're going to make it 4 of a kind here. School funding. School funding by far is the most important issue. Our opponents voted for a budget this year that took $2.1 million out of District 11. My district lost $155,000. Eric actually voted to take $650,000 out of his own district. I'm scared to think what he will do with this commission. Joanne mentioned that she wanted to take legislators out of it. Then why run? If you can't stand up and put your decisions in front of you, be able to make decisions that are able to affect everybody, that's why we're voting for you. We don't need to punt, we don't need to drop back, we don't need to create a commission. You're voting for us to make decisions for you. We don't need commissions to make those decisions for us. We don't need to take a look at it, we need to do something about it, plain and simple. One recommendation that I would have with regard to cost, from a school funding perspective, I do agree that we have too many districts. We also have too many districts that have too much bloated budgets. We need to look at regionalizing, not consolidating, but regionalizing. Take a county chancellor, have them oversee the entire county. It works in, I don't agree with their philosophies, but it works in California, Delaware, and Maryland very well. You have one regional, countywide chancellor, you have a handful of superintendents. That will work if you're able to limit the number of superintendents, limit the number of overhead, and most importantly, you need to limit the number of processes and paperwork that the schools need to do that the state's requiring.
Thank you. Okay, new subject, and we will start with Mr. Hoteling. What is your stand on making New Jersey a sanctuary state?
I don't have a stand on that.
Okay. Mr. O'Shea?
Punting again. I am absolutely opposed to any type of sanctuary state. I am absolutely 100% in favor of immigrants coming in and making it legal for them to be residents. There needs to be a process in place for the ones that are coming in. There needs to be a process in place for those that are here illegally, whether they were brought here by their parents as the so-called dreamers, but there needs to be a process in place. But you're already here, whether your parents brought you or you came illegally, you're already illegal. So making a sanctuary city or a state in New Jersey, something that needs to, according to Murphy, who wants to make it happen day one, is going to go against everything New Jersey stands for. It's going to go against everything I believe in because I was taught to follow the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. We need to put processes in place so that they can be legalized. We need to make it easier for them. We need to make sure that there are processes in place to have that happen. If there is additional funding that's needed to educate them, we need to put that in place. But we're not going to make New Jersey a sanctuary state, I can guarantee you that.
Ms. Beck?
So I would not support making New Jersey a sanctuary state. I do believe our 22,000 dreamers should be able to reside and stay here and continue their vocations in New Jersey. And I am not supportive of 287G, which would deputize local police to take on immigration functions. If I understand what gubernatorial candidate Murphy is meaning by sanctuary state, it's essentially that state and local law enforcement are not allowed to communicate with federal law enforcement when they arrest somebody. And I think just even functionally, that's not possible or difficult or nearly impossible to do. And particularly if you have a criminal that's committed a violent act, I think that that is, that's impossible for law enforcement to not be able to communicate. So, no, I would not support a sanctuary state.
Mr. Whalen?
Thank you. I'll try to keep it brief. I would not support a sanctuary state as well. As the police commissioner of Red Bank, this issue came up in my hometown where I voted no against the resolution that was trying to be passed in Red Bank. Even in a Democratic town, in an urban environment, the Democrats who put up this bill eventually watered it down so much that all it was a welcoming, inclusive city because they realized it wasn't even a good idea. And like I said, Red Bank was run by Democrats for 30 years. I had multiple meetings, hours of conversations with our police chief, and to understand the relationship between local law enforcement to state law enforcement to ICE, and the working relationships that we have from the local, state, federal government, and especially with the county. And I just think when you're intervening in these relationships, like when ICE comes to Red Bank, our police have to, by law, by the Attorney General, help enforce ICE when they come and say, investigate men or women who they are looking at. So it really makes no policy sense to do this, and I will not support it.
Thank you. Ms. Downey?
Thank you. You know, as much as I respect and support Phil Murphy as the next governor, you know, I'm hoping to be the next governor, I would say that I would not actually support, I would actually question the sanctuary state as a designation. And let me explain why, because I really do think, and I don't agree with the reasoning that was put forth, especially by Mr. Chera. You know, when we talk about, like, as a legislator, we're also people who are supposed to question things and question the law. People, as an attorney, you question the law, because that's why we change it if it needs to be changed. And so we have to remember that when we represent people, we represent everybody here. We're not just making decisions just to make decisions. We are making them with knowing from your input, because they're not our seats, they're your seats. And one thing I want to remind people is that many of the people who are here, who are undocumented, who are doing well, should have a path, a bipartisan path, and that should be done on the federal level to make them legal, pay taxes, have auto insurance, and be able to continue to be productive citizens. Don't break up families. People who are doing well in school, those young people who are doing well, they'll be productive citizens adding to our economy. But if they're criminals, they go out immediately. Of course they're deported. That seems pretty easy. We just all need to get together and do the right thing.
Thank you. Mr. Gopel?
Thank you. I also agree with the Assemblywoman. I don't support that designation. If any undocumented immigrant commits a crime, they should be deported immediately, no questions asked. But I'll tell you, this is a clear difference between us and our opposition. You know, we've watched a governor for the last 8 years who's embarrassed this state, whether he's on the beach or yelling at somebody at a Cubs game. And, you know, with all respect to Councilman Achera with a snarky remark like, you know, punting again, it could be possible the Assemblyman hasn't made his position yet, and he's thinking about it, because the three of us did discuss this yesterday. And the Assemblyman said, I want to talk more about this, I want to look more into it, and I think that's healthy, and that's okay in our democracy. There's nothing wrong with that. So this is what New Jersey faces over the next couple years. We need people that are going to work across party lines, work together, work with respect, not just for our opponents, but with each other. And I think that's what's sorely missing in the state today.
Thank you. We're going to start with Mr. Achera on this one. What are your views on the New Jersey bear hunt?
Wow. Didn't see that one coming.
Neither did I.
Yeah. Let's think about that one for a moment. Bear hunt.
Well, so I don't think we have many bears in Monmouth County that we have to worry about, but we certainly have a lot of deer in Ocean Township. I'm going to try to relate the two, for lack of a better example. There are a lot of deers in Ocean Township, and we get questioned every meeting, when are we going to do something about the deer population? More than half of the population in Ocean Township look at deer as Bambi, and they don't want anybody hurting Bambi or killing Bambi or tranquilizing Bambi. The other half says we're going to have traffic accidents, we're going to have issues, we're going to have people getting killed, my vegetation's getting eaten. It's a tough issue. We are looking and working with Monmouth County to figure out the best way to handle it for both populations, the deer and the people, and those that are in favor of the deer and those that are not in favor of the deer. I haven't really had to deal with bears, so I'm going to say I don't have an answer for bears, but that's my response for deer.
Okay.
I voted against the bear hunt. We haven't had that bill came up, I want to see when I was in the assembly, because we haven't seen it in a while, but I know that some will say it's illogical, bear can kill people. I just can't bring myself to let them hunt them. No, I just can't, so I'm
Thank you.
opposed.
Mr. Whalen?
I'm happy you didn't start with me on that question. I'm gonna be honest, like Robert Sherry, I didn't know much about it, but I'm gonna agree with Senator Beck here that I'd be more inclined to say no. I just, to me, just thought it doesn't seem right always, so.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Downey?
I actually have to say, I'd like to do more research on to find more information, but the fact is that it's hurting more of our citizens. We have to look into if it's important to do because it's hurting our residents, then we need to look into it. But if it's not, and it's just really, about if it really hurts people more, it hurts bear more. I mean, I go back to the deer thing too. I mean, the thing is that it does cause accidents, and bears can cause serious injury to people, especially in the parks. But the problem is we're overpopulating, and we're pushing them into places where people live. And so it's very cruel to just want to go out and hunt them when they didn't cause this, we did. So that's why I really like to look more into how we can better take care of them than just hunt them with guns. I mean, I think maybe we can do something better than that.
Thank you. Mr. Gopal?
I am deeply opposed to it, and as a senator, I will fight very hard against any bear hunts.
Thank you. Mr. Hotelling?
Thank you. I'd just like to go back to that sanctuary state question for a minute, if I may. I have a minute and a half.
You have a minute and a half.
I could be brief on the other one. But a sanctuary state, really, that term to me is just so absurd. I mean, sanctuary state, I mean, I'm a law-abiding person. I live in the state, and I want to live with law-abiding people. And so, when that time comes to make a decision on how I feel about that, or the decisions that we make, I mean, I doubt very much that it'll ever reach us, because I really don't think it'll ever happen, honest to God. I don't. And I think there's a lot of people out there that understand what the problems we have in the state of New Jersey, but we want to be safe here in the state of New Jersey as well. Now, how do I feel about the bear hunt? I know it's a huge problem up north. I know that there's a lot of things that go on with that, but they are. Everybody's got a teddy bear. Everybody loves a bear. So it's hard to say that anybody wants to kill Bambi, and I'm certainly not going to be one of those. But something that needs to be looked into. But I definitely would say I'm opposed to that.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and I think we'll start at the far end with Mr. Whalen and come back this way so that you have different order. Mr. Whalen, what would you do to promote job growth in our state?
Thank you. Great question. I think to promote job growth in the state, you first have to make it easier to do business in the state of New Jersey. Currently, New Jersey is the worst state to live in, to die in, to have a business in, to retire in. I mean, we rank last in almost every single statistic that every state has ever done. And I think you first have to change that environment. And like I said in my opening statement, I think you have to look at it holistically. You have to cut, grow, and expand technology. And I think it kind of is it's that holistic approach, but you have to make it easier for businesses to do business in the state. I know there's been a red tape commission that's been in place. I think it needs to be ramped up even more. I think there needs to be more reports that come out of the commission to say, what are these regulatory processes that are keeping businesses down? But I know our opponents on the other side of the aisle have done nothing but increase the corporate business tax, increase sales tax, increase every single tax, like Phil Murphy has said, and like my opponent's voting record has been increasing taxes. That's just not the way to create or promote growth in jobs or the economy in New Jersey.
Thank you. Ms. Downing?
New Jersey, we have such a great state. We have a highly educated workforce. We have a lot of great things to offer, so many universities. We have so many scientists. We are incredible. What we have to do to grow the economy is to help more of our small businesses. We really do. We really have to make sure that we expand, get back into the urban enterprise zones, make sure that continues to move forward, because that really helps small businesses. And you can get tax credits, for new hires. You can get tax exemptions for electricity and things like that, for manufacturing businesses. The thing is, you can also offer reduced sales tax, so from 6.75 to 3.5. I mean, that makes a difference, and that helps really to stir the economy, helps people to want to buy in our towns. We also want to make sure women are able to get loans, and minorities are able to get loans to start their own small businesses, because we don't do enough of that, and we want to promote that. We have a law now that we want to make sure that women are, in terms of there's an advanced placement, it's for women's advancement, Office for Women's Advancement, I'm sorry, the name escapes me. But what we're going to do is, again, with that, promote making sure that women get access to different things to help them grow, and make sure that with that, we're also helping gender pay equity. So all of that is coming together, and we need to make sure that we have that, because here we're behind $458 billion in terms of how much money we've lost because women don't make the same amount as men.
Thank you. Mr. O'Shea?
Oh, skipping or Vinca?
People going this way, that
Yeah,
way.
we're gonna go.
We're going back and forth.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's fine.
Mix it up.
All right, I was taking a nap. All right, the biggest thing, as Mr. Whalen said, has to do with bureaucracy and the cumbersome, the hardness that it is for businesses to succeed in New Jersey. Sorry, I couldn't get that one out. So Red Tape Commission was created to look at the way various government agencies are functioning and how they're treating businesses. We need to consider, continue to look at those issues and be able to streamline those to make it more business friendly in New Jersey. We need to look at education. A lot of our corporations in New Jersey are not finding the quality employees that they need with the skill level that they're looking for. That goes across all aspects. You have high schools now that are looking to career readiness as well as college readiness. You need to find the person that's looking to do either and be able to educate them properly so the employers in New Jersey have a quality workforce. So everybody doesn't make it to college. We need to continue to look at career readiness from a vocational school perspective so that we have those types of individuals that are able to work in the workforce in New Jersey as well as colleges. We need to look at centers of excellence for various types of programs, whether it be STEM or other engineering or programs like that. So again, we can attract the quality corporations that are bringing business back to New Jersey, staying in New Jersey, and being headquartered here. Centers of excellence, education, and red tape. That's it. That's it. Thank you.
You were right to be confused. I meant to go to Ms. Beck. Go ahead.
So we have cut about $3 billion in taxes on small business. I'm a small business owner myself. I've been running a marketing and media relations company for almost a decade. And I certainly appreciate, as a small businesswoman, the challenge. The $3 billion of taxes that we were able to alleviate off of small business include creating a single sales factor, allowing net operating losses to be spread over multiple years, and reducing S corporation taxes by 25%. And we have more to do. The state of New Jersey has recovered 314,000 jobs since its low point of February of 2010. Our labor participation rate is higher than the national average. We're at about 63.5% versus the rest of the nation, which is about 62. But there is always more to do. And probably the biggest issue for New Jersey is affordability. And so raising the sales tax, raising the corporate business tax, the income tax, the estate tax, the minimum wage are not ways to attract new business and will definitely put a damper on New Jersey's economy.
Thank you. Mr. Gopel?
Thank you. The Assemblywoman touched on it a little bit, but when we see the rise of Asbury Park and Long Branch, a big part of that was due to the urban enterprise zones, which Governor Christie gutted the funding for, and Senator Beck did not speak up, actually supported that happening. And to this day, we would have had a 3.5% sales tax in a certain area, and we've seen, if you talk to the business owners in Asbury Park and Long Branch, they would tell you how much success that's had. I hope we can get that back under a new administration. As a small business owner, not just having served on the board of the Monmouth County Chamber and president of my town's Business Owners Association, I understand what it is to go through and make payroll each and every month. I know what it's like in my early years when I started 10 years ago, not having to take a paycheck to make sure your employees get paid, what it means to put money into your business to keep it going. These are the things that thousands of business owners are going through across the 11th district, mom and pops that are struggling each and every day, that simply aren't looking for a handout but don't want government to get in their way. So when we have municipal governments, despite political party, that have unfair zoning ordinances, sign ordinances, planning ordinances, it hurts our businesses from growing. And that's been something we've seen as a culture here in the state. And we need to do everything we can to stop it, and as your state senator, I'll make sure that's a top priority.
Thank you. Mr. Hotelling, what would you do to promote job growth in our state?
Thank you. One of the things that I do, I'm on the agriculture committee, and agriculture, people say, what's that all about? But it's the third largest industry we have in the state of New Jersey. And one of the thriving industries that we have now is the small breweries that we have popping up all over. And when they first started, it was so regulated of all the things that they could do. They have to do this, they have to do that. That's one of the things that I have worked on through the Agriculture Committee, of trying to make it easier for them to open up and make their businesses viable. But there's a lot of resistance to that because a lot of people don't want to see those businesses succeed in a lot of our towns. So we're working hard to make that happen. Also through agriculture, there's so much that's available of different forms of agriculture that we have now, hydroponics, where we're growing vegetables. They don't have to be grown in a field; they can be grown in a warehouse. So there's a lot of unique businesses that are popping up all over. That's a perfect example of what's going on in Asbury Park downtown. They have a greenhouse down there where they're growing vegetables for all the downtown restaurants that they have down there. That's all part of agriculture. So, I'm just saying one small aspect of things, but agriculture in the state of New Jersey is very big. It's very viable, and it's a great industry, and we're going to promote it all that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Downey. Do you support pay equality for women, and how will you accomplish this?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. And as a mother of two daughters, this is so important to me, as well as it is to many of the people here, whether you're a woman, whether you have daughters, sisters, wives, everybody in your family who's a woman. You want to make sure that they get paid the same as a man. So we have supported pay equity. I have supported pay equity. I will continue to push forward with that. I want to see that happen because I can't believe that we don't have that in 2017. And it's amazing, the Lilly Ledbetter Act from 2009. The fact that we can't get that passed here in the state of New Jersey to make sure that's part of our law against discrimination is just unacceptable. So we're going to make sure that that happens. And the other thing that I'm going to push forward is I had a bill that was introduced for salary history to prevent employers from asking your prior salary history. Why is that important? Because women usually get paid less. And so when you go to a job and they ask you what your prior pay was, why should you have to tell them that? Why shouldn't you just get paid whatever it is that the actual salary is? And it would help everybody, actually. So I'm looking forward to continue moving forward with many more things to help women in the workforce, as well as every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. My mother, I know, is sitting in the room, and like I said earlier, I was raised by a single mother who worked 60 hours more a week. I have a twin sister who got her master's at Georgetown in mathematics, and a little sister who's in New York doing fashion. I mean, to think that women would make less than men, so I fully support pay equality. I mean, a woman should not make less than a man. There's no place for that, and I know New Jersey already has some of the strongest laws in place that have been around for decades, so I fully support the laws that are on the books. If there are ways that we can strengthen some of these loopholes, I'm on board for this open conversation, but of course in 2017 women should not make less than men, and I'm happy to have the women in my life here tonight.
Mr. Gopal?
Sure. There's a recent report in the Star Ledger, I don't know how many of you saw it, that came out a few months ago, that showed that Hilton Hotel up in North Jersey were hiring male maids and women maids, same job description, same responsibilities at a different rate. They were paying the men more. This is an issue that I think we need to do everything we can. We need to strengthen the laws in the state. Senator Rebecca and I do have some disagreement on this. She was the only woman in the Senate to vote against this bill. She argued that there were some restrictions and over-regulation on it, and that the bill, I think she said, didn't go far enough. I'm sure she's going to say, correct that. But my concern with that is that even her Republican colleagues voted for the bill. Senator Kip Bateman, who's a prominent Republican, and Senator Diane Allen both said the bill is a good step forward. Let's move forward with that. So I was concerned, obviously, as I know a lot of people were, when Senator Beck was the only woman to vote against that bill.
And next is Senator Beck.
Of course, as a woman and a woman business owner, there are no circumstances under which I think Vin Gopal should make more money than me. So, So to be clear, I am for pay equity. And I have supported a number of pieces of legislation, including excluding wage discrimination awards from taxation. Have my own bill that goes much farther than Lilly Ledbetter, which Assemblywoman is in place in the state of New Jersey, which only allows 2 years back pay. My legislation allows women to collect back pay to the first date of discrimination and provides for double damages. The bill that Vin referenced is a bill that would have required all 32,000 employers that have a contract with the state of New Jersey to report the name, age, gender, race of every single employee they had to the New Jersey Department of Labor, regardless of where the company was on the globe or how many tens of thousands of employees they had. We would have been the only state in the nation to require that of employers. It was onerous and it didn't make sense. But I obviously, as a woman, support pay equity, and it's insulting if anyone suggests otherwise.
Do I get to answer it?
Yeah.
Can I answer that question?
Well, I was going to call on Mr. Hotelling.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I thought he was going to the next question. I apologize. It's all yours. Same question?
Yeah, same question. What would you do to make it happen?
Certainly we support the equal pay, and I just want to go back to the bill that Joanne was talking about, our salary history bill. I'm just going to relate to the fact that if you're going to go for an interview and you're going to be talking to someone who's a trained professional and he's going to grill you on how much you've made, and you're going to go there to try to better yourself, and they're going to grill you, how much would you make on your last job? And the reason I'm going to say that because the time that this bill was moving forward, I was just trading my car in, and I went to the dealer and I said to the guys, I like the car, but I don't want to pay that much. So every time he offered me a car, it was about $10 less than the payment that I had. So he was at an advantage with me. It was no different than when you go to get a job and you're trying to negotiate. If you tell them what you were making before, there's their advantage. And they're not just anybody interviewing you for a job. They're like a professional person trying to get you there as cheap as possible. And you know what? When somebody's trying to advance themselves and they're trying to move around, that gave them the assurances that they would be on a fair and level playing ground. And that's what we want to do. There's a reason why the pay gap is so wide between men and women in the state of New Jersey, and it's things like this. And this bill got voted down along party lines. And that's what really bothered me. Is it only Republicans that don't like that, or is the Democrats are the only ones that think that pay equity is what we need to do? So that's something that really all of us here need to think about.
Mr. O'Shea.
Yes, I'm fully in support of pay equity, and just to correct Eric, Senator Beck did vote in favor of it, so it wasn't on party lines. But I am in support of pay equity and would do anything possible to make sure that that continues in the state of New Jersey. The laws are in place today. Millicent Fenwick sponsored it back in the 70s. It is the most progressive and regressive law. What did I say? Aggressive, I apologize. Law in the state, sorry, aggressive. Law in the state, and I would continue to promote it and ensure that any woman in the workforce is paid equally.
Okay, now we're going to change subject. There are several questions here about healthcare and so forth, so let's start dealing with that. This questioner says Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the U.S. 14,000 people are affected in Monmouth County. What do you plan to do to provide support to the parents, families, and caregivers? And we'll start with Ms. Beck.
So, growing up, my grandmother lived with us and I cared for her throughout my, through 8th grade right through to when I went off to college, and she had Alzheimer's, and I fed her and bathed her, and it's difficult. It was definitely a difficult struggle for our family. We have had a couple of bills that have come through the Senate, one which provides a tax credit for caregivers so that they can hire someone and take a respite, because I can tell you that for our family there was a struggle. It's a lot. It's constant care, 24 hours a day, and that was one of the initiatives that we've put forward. We also know at the federal level that they've been aggressive in funding more research, and we are hopeful that Alzheimer's can find some sort of mitigating cure, because it is it's a very destructive disease, and I've lived through it.
Ms. Downey?
I'm in full support of any tax credits towards caregivers who would provide that help to their loved ones who are suffering from that terrible disease. And it's part of like what we have a problem with our healthcare system generally, and that's part of it, that we don't have, we have to make sure that we do better. And we don't have a lot of services that are provided for. And we're seeing a broken system now that's occurring from our federal level, and it's going to affect us. We're going to wind up losing a lot of money here in the state of New Jersey. People aren't going to be able to afford their coverage, because we're going to lose our Medicaid expansion and subsidy. There's going to be no subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. So we need to make sure that we do enough to protect our citizens, and I think we need to look at a lot of different things. We need to make sure that we restore women's health care funding for family services, to make sure that people are able, and because we lost $7.5 million over the last 6 years in funding that we would have gotten to make sure people get their health care. We have to make sure that we don't have surprise medical bills too. That's all part of this, because we have to be able to afford these things, know what we're paying for. And then the other thing is, again, making sure that we have more things towards diabetes care, making sure that our insurance companies have to pay for these services, provide 12 months of contraceptive coverage, all of those things. So that's all in addition.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen?
Thank you. I think, I know you asked about Alzheimer's. I think the number one thing that anyone wants is actually a cure. And I think that comes with research, like Senator Beck said. I myself had a personal experience. I was 15 years old. I was a dishwasher at a golf club. And I actually stayed with my grandmother for the whole summer. As my grandfather was put on hospice, so the final 6 months, I'd sleep on the couch so my grandmother can sleep in her bed. And like Senator Beck, I changed my grandfather's diapers and have all of the, kind of the nightmare of the end of life and Alzheimer's. I think the problem is, fortunately, my grandfather's wife was a nurse, so we were able to keep him in a hospital bed, actually in the dining room. I'm sorry, it's an emotional issue, but I think it's more about research and it's finding a cure. And we see with so many other diseases in this country that there's so many more walks and so many more events. I just don't think there's enough. I don't think Alzheimer's is on the front burner, and I think New Jersey has an opportunity to put Alzheimer's on the front burner by offering more research and development and things of that nature.
Thank you. Mr. Gopal?
Sure. I think this is an area of agreement on both sides, is we need to do more and make sure we do more on funding research, funding healthcare options. With anything funding related, we always need to figure out how to pay for something, and something that I proposed the other day when I was meeting with the press was really, as an employer, looking at unemployment insurance and how much money we're losing each and every day there. As an employer, I pay into it, and I'd like to see, with so many people that are on there that I believe shouldn't be on there, reforming that system towards community service at the state level. I think we can save a lot of dollars and put it into things like Alzheimer's research, cancer research, and things like that, and I think that would be a great place to start.
Mr. O'Shea?
I would agree with Vin. I think we all agree that there needs to be more funding on this, and I certainly would support any means possible to provide the additional funding. I haven't had to suffer personally with anybody in the family with Alzheimer's. I don't wish that upon anybody, and thank God that hasn't happened. But for those who have had to work with those people and see them through, certainly a tax credit is one thing that could ease the financial burden, but there's also many other ways that we could certainly try to find a cure. And to Mr. Whalen's suggestion, we certainly can try to help the organizations that are doing that to make sure that they are set up properly and spending the time doing what's needed to find that cure.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Telling?
Thank you. I have a little insight in this. Me and my sister are the providers for my mother, who's 89 years old, and she's struggling with dementia right now, which is a terrible, terrible disease. And not only is it driving her crazy, but it's driving her children crazy. And we have just gone down through the pay down. I don't know if anybody's ever done that, but it's a very tedious process of trying to pay down. And something that my sister and I are very worried about now is what's going on the federal level. The security that we have with the Affordable Care Act and things like that, and the federal government thinking that there will be saving money by eliminating money here on the state and local level, and that's just not the way to go. So, someone like my mother, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are struggling as well. She's in a nursing home and she needs a lot of care, and it's a very, very tough thing. And so, all we can do to help, that would be a great thing. But we have to make sure that we, as a governing body who represents the state, we're going to fight as hard as we can not to lose any funds for our Medicaid and our Medicare services.
Thank you. Mr. O'Shea, we'll start with you on this question. Where do you stand on legalization of medical marijuana or recreational marijuana?
So medical marijuana, I'm in support of. There are certainly some dispensaries in the state. I think there's a lot of issues in getting those properly set up and being able to get them get the marijuana dispensed to those that need it. I am not in favor of legalizing marijuana recreationally. I do not support that. I think it is a gateway drug, and I think we have a number of issues in the state right now with other types of drugs. To add another one to the list is not going to help us.
Thank you. Mr. Hotelling.
Thank you. Just an article in the paper today about legalizing marijuana, and one of the major concerns that I have is there's no way to test whether if you were drinking, whether you would be intoxicated, whether you'd be under the influence while you're driving a vehicle. And right now, there's no way to do that. The only way that they can tell whether someone is under the influence is they have to have someone very trained to do that. It's a very cumbersome process. One of the things I don't like is, recreational marijuana. But having a small amount found on you or in your car or in your vehicle, can ruin your life. And I think we have a lot of people in jail for that who have a record. And I think it's something that we really need to look into on that. As far as legalizing marijuana, there's a lot of things that need to be looked into, and right now I'm not committed on doing that.
Thank you. Ms. Beck.
I would not be supportive of legalizing marijuana, particularly as we struggle right now with the opioid epidemic, and a legal drug that is taking young and old. It was promised that it would never addict people. I don't know if anyone watches 60 Minutes, but last night they had a whole expose on sort of how the pharmaceutical industry and this distribution has been able to get these drugs out across the country, and so many have become addicted despite them suggesting they would not. I just think legalizing marijuana right now doesn't make sense, and I would not support it. We have had bills through the legislature that decriminalize small amounts of marijuana that has gotten support of the legislature and passed. And I think as we looked at issues like ban the box, so that people that had minor instances or run-ins, that they would not then be prohibited from interviewing for jobs. So we have taken a look at some of those issues around, small amounts of drugs being found in possession.
Thank you. Mr. Capel?
This is an issue, I've done a lot of research and I've really looked at it and studied it in depth. I might be the minority position on both sides here, but we have a lot of problems in this country, and one of them is our criminal justice system. The fact that we spend billions of dollars on locking up nonviolent criminals, it's costing our state and our country a lot of money. I've seen plenty of studies and research that shows how negative the effects of alcoholism are and how negative the effects of nicotine are. So I am in favor of moving forward on legalizing marijuana, but we have now 6 states that have done it, I believe, 5 or 6 states. There's a lot of pros in there and a lot of cons, some good things that have happened, some bad things. And I think we need to take our time, we need to do it the right way, and we need to see what works and what doesn't. But I have not seen any studies that show that anybody gets addicted to marijuana. There's plenty of research out there, but I do see there are plenty of people that get addicted to alcohol. So I think that we need to look at it rationally, take our time, not be in a rush, and continue to do more studies. And without a doubt, of course, I support medical marijuana. I think it helps a lot of people that are suffering right now in this country.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen?
I actually agree with a lot of what Vin just said. I think when you look at the marijuana world, you have to look at it in 3 parts. You look at it from a medical perspective, you look at it from a criminal perspective, and then you look at it from that third piece, which is the recreational perspective. I think we should expand medical marijuana. There are some diseases that are not on the list that should be on the list. A good friend of mine is cystic fibrosis, and he's written about a bunch of letters and summed up a lot of the research for me, which I'm going to, hopefully once I get in, help expand some diseases that aren't on that list. When it comes to decriminalization, I think it's sickening and horrid that you have men who get out of jail earlier than when they've raped somebody than somebody has when they've sold a plant. So I think from the decriminalization perspective, it has to be done. I just think some people are locked and thrown away in jail for such a long time for selling a plant, but these violent crimes, these criminals are getting out a lot quicker. So I agree with Vin on that point. I'm actually in favor of talking about a conversation of what a home recreational use would look like. I'm not saying yes, but I think there are some cases, like Vin said, alcohol just becomes so culturally accepted that we don't even realize how bad alcohol really is for you. Vin brought up alcoholism, he's correct on that. So I think if someone wants to watch a game and have a beer, and they want to sit at their house and watch a game and have a joint, that's a conversation I think should be had, but we'd have to do more research, like you had said.
Thank you. And Ms. Downing?
I feel like we said a lot of the same things, but I'll go back to, I agree with a lot of things that everyone else just said. Medical marijuana, absolutely in favor of 100%, and I agree that we might need to look into expanding that for certain other diseases, depending on what the doctors, recommend. The other thing is decriminalizing. I totally agree. We need to decriminalize it because we do spend way too much money and we ruin lives by having people wind up in jail just for having marijuana. We also need to talk about how Colorado and some other states are doing really well, even though it is looked upon as a gateway drug. There are no studies to prove that. And I would like to see more studies. I'd like to do more research because I don't think it's anything to rush into either. But we have to, as a responsibility to all of our citizens here, to look into it because they were able in Colorado to make so much money that they were able to put that money into all kinds of things that helped their economy. So we need to take a look at it, but I would want to make sure there was heavy regulation and that we did it the right way and not rush into it.
Thank you. I'm going to try to put these 2 questions together. The first one is very general about what would you do to ensure New Jerseyans to have access to the best possible health care. And obviously, a lot of your answers depend on what federal legislation happens. So with that in mind, this is more specific. How will you protect funds for reproductive health care for women and men, also funding for AIDS testing, education, and STD treatment? So that's specific, but it's a general health care question for our state. Let's start with Mr. Hotelling. I haven't started with you yet.
Okay. Could you do the question one more time?
Yeah, I know, I put two of them together. And generally speaking, what will you do to ensure New Jerseyans have access to the best possible health care? You can be general, or you can go to protecting funds for reproductive health care for men and women, funding for AIDS testing, so on.
Okay, what we can do to provide the best health care is, what we really need to do is keep an eye on what goes on the federal level. Right now, that's where we're struggling, and there's a lot of people out there wondering what's going to be going on with their health care, and that's all in the hands of what goes on, what you watch on TV every day. It's like a soap opera, what's going on with our health care, but these are real life issues that affect all of us and everybody probably in this room here. What goes on at the federal level is going to trickle right down to the state and local municipal levels, and we have really an obligation to provide the best health care we can for everybody, because we want everybody to live as long as possible, and but it's not cheap, it's not easy, but we can certainly do things to make that happen. As far as reproductive issues and things like that, yes, I am for supporting that and providing funding for that, and I think the last few years the state has not provided funding for that, but I'm definitely for providing funding to make that happen.
Thank you. Mr. Whalen?
Thank you. I don't think Eric answered the question. What I'm going to try to do is, at the last editorial board of the Asbury Park Press, Joanne Downey said that she'd be in favor of a single-payer system for New Jersey. I wholeheartedly disagree and would be opposed to that. I don't just believe in the principle of having a single-payer, but when it comes to HIV testing and different mechanisms along those lines, I think you have to obviously have the research there for people to be able to get tested and to be able to access, because obviously they're more right.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Downey?
I need to address, well, first of all, I went through a lot of these things before too, about the things that I was saying with how our system is broken now. And we really need to do something to protect everyone. And besides the state things I said we can do, which is make sure we restore our funding, that $7.5 million that should go towards family services. We need to do that. That's important. But besides that, we need to look at what is another option. Because honestly, we're running out of options. We're going to have like 550,000 residents at least that would lose their Medicaid coverage here. And it's really scary. Besides that, I have to make sure people know this goes to the economy too, because we have 24,000 new jobs as a result of the Affordable Care Act. And those jobs are gonna just disappear with this whole thing if it collapses. And so we need to look at other options. So when Mr. Whalen says something about single payer, yes, I brought it up as a very viable option because we can't be irresponsible. We need to look at every way possible that we can help each other. Hey, it's worked in all different places, including Israel, where they have the most efficient healthcare system and they have the best in terms of how healthy they are. And Australia, countries all throughout Europe, and we need to look at it as an alternative. But if other things do better for our taxpayers, we'll look at that.
Thank you. Ms. Beck? Ms. Beck?
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So, a couple of things. I supported the Medicaid expansion. We have more than 500,000 people that have taken advantage of that. It's been a huge success. It would be an enormous blow to New Jersey if we lost those federal funds. And while I'm not in Congress, thankfully we have a congressman here. He's hearing all of our concerns. That The 126,000 people that get subsidies to access healthcare through the Affordable Care Act, obviously, a lot of those folks would not have insurance, so it's a real concern for the state of New Jersey. We have been very supportive of our federally qualified health centers. We have one in Long Branch, Red Bank, Asbury, and they've been very helpful in providing access to care for those who may not have access to insurance. And also on reproductive rights, I have on 13 different occasions supported the $7.5 million to go into the budget, including supporting an override of the governor July 11th of 2011. But I think at this point, with the increase in sexually transmitted infections, which is at an epidemic level in New Jersey, syphilis is back in a way they haven't seen since the 1920s. We probably need more than that. $7.5 million is probably simply not enough.
Mr. Gopel?
I think that a lot of people are concerned in the state of the country with the potential losses of Medicaid. People had a lot of concerns in the early parts of Obamacare. Congress, I did as a business owner and working with Congressman Pallone and others, they corrected a lot of those things when it came to some of the regulation. Many people, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, are very concerned about what the federal government could be doing specifically to New Jersey. We would be the #1 target in the country if those cuts to Medicaid go through. We need to restore the funding for women's health care, which has been gutted over the last 8 years by Governor Christie. I think that's something that should not be a political issue. It shouldn't be a football that we just throw around, and I think that is going to be a very important thing moving forward.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Shea?
I would say that currently there probably needs to be more funding for women's health. Currently this year's budget, if I got my numbers right, had over $90 million for women's health, $28 million for community health centers, $37 million for maternity, $12 million for cancer research, $4.3 million for STDs, and $3.5 million for education and screenings. So $90 million is a lot of money, but there certainly can be more for the various topics that everybody on this day has said. There are needs for that, and we should continue to try to increase it to help every individual.
Okay, thank you. We are running out of time. We're getting close to closing. I have 2 questions I'd like to ask, and this is basically a yes or no. So if you could do that quickly, we can get to the last one. And let's just start here with Ms. Downey. Will you accept Super PAC donations?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Legally, you can't coordinate, so no.
Okay.
No.
Mr. O'Shea?
No, it's against the law.
Ms. Beck?
No.
No.
Okay, whoever asked it, I hope you're... Okay, the last question, and there are so many good ones, but we'll have to close with this one. And we'll start with Mr. Whalen and just work our way down the line. Do you think the time spent preparing for and taking the park is a productive use of our children's time, teachers' time? If not, why should we continue to participate?
I think it's important to keep participating because I think it's part of the process, it's part of the assessment. So I think there's ways it could be expanded. I don't think just that one singular test score should be the ultimate decider for teachers or for students when they're graduating. I think that there should be a multifaceted a scoring system for teachers, for students to evaluate. No one mechanism, no one choice is ever good enough. So I think there's ways to expand it, there's ways to evolve from it, there's things that can be changed. But I think it's important, take it, but I think there's also ways that we can look towards the future on different ways in how we evaluate teachers and then the students moving forward.
No, it doesn't have to be park. It doesn't. There are many different assessments out there, some better, some worse. I think our challenge is that we've invested many years rolling out the park exam and spent a lot of money on it. So now, changing course, you're gonna have to re-spend. It certainly should not be the only objective criteria used for graduation, which is proposed for 2021, because obviously there are many other factors. Some kids are great test takers, some are not, so that should not be the sole criteria for graduating. But yeah, I would be open to taking a look at another type of assessment. We don't have to use PARC, but we do have to have some type of assessment for our students.
Thank you. Mr. O'Shea.
Woke me up again. So, having served on the Board of Education in Ocean Township for 4 years, and my wife is currently the state PTA president, there's a lot of pillow talk, believe it or not, about Common Core and Park. What can I tell you? So, I think, as I mentioned before, college and career readiness is something very important to New Jersey. And for the students within the high school today, they need to have that direction. And the Common Core, while it is important, and the PARC test was one of the offshoots of that to be able to qualify those folks, I think the concept started off very good, and then it got politicized and it got commercialized. I do believe there needs to be some form of an evaluation, both for students and teachers. I believe the original PARC assessment was going to have attribute to 30% of a teacher's evaluation. I think that was way too high. 10% is reasonable. But also from an assessment standpoint, students do have the option of opting out right now. I don't know if that's the best thing in the world. I get we should not be teaching to the test. I'm wholeheartedly in support of that. That is a bad idea. And when teachers are forced to do that because of Department of Education requirements, that is suffering. The teachers are suffering, students are suffering, and the taxpayers are suffering because there's a lot of money being wasted on that.
Okay. Mr. Hotelan?
Thank you. When we talk about the high cost of education, the PARC test certainly has something to do with that. The governor really is in favor of PARC testing, and he has put a lot of faith into it, and he's made our schools and our teachers really teach to a test. Really, that when you're all done taking the test, the children get no value out of it whatsoever. If it was something that when they were all done they could take value from spending all that time and money on taking a PARC test, okay, that would be good, but that's not the end result. The end result is only so someone can do a little bit of research on what is going on in schools. There's other ways to do that, and we have spoken to a lot of the educators that are out there, and there's various methods of what need to be done. And my thought process on that is we need to have educators come to us and come to legislators, and we need to sit down and talk to them about what they think would be an appropriate test for our children as they move forward, and something they can teach which would be part of their daily curriculum and not spending so much time on one particular thing.
Thank you. Mr. Gopel?
We have so many students that are so smart and so talented and unfortunately can't be put together based on a standardized test. So I think we do need a new path forward. I think we need something fair. I think we need something that puts it in the hands of educators, not in the hands of politicians. And I think that the PARC test has been a pretty big failure.
Okay. Ms. Downing?
I agree, it's just a waste. First we need standardized testing of some type, but this particular type, the PARC testing, has been a waste of a lot of time and hours for teachers to teach to it, and also in preparation for it, and in terms of the actual test taking. So I've heard many teachers talk about that long process and how it takes away from the other part of learning with the students. And then the other part of it is to have that as a graduation requirement it really doesn't seem like the right thing, considering it's only the 10th grade part of the English, and then we're talking about the algebra. I mean, I don't understand why that has to be the requirement. It doesn't seem like, I know we made it through without needing that kind of requirement, and I think we've done quite well. So I really think we need to look at it and make a better choice about this. And 30% is what the governor wanted this to be as an assessment for teachers to evaluate them, and I think that is completely horrible, and it seemed like to punish, and that's not fair because our teachers are the best. We have a great, great education system here in New Jersey, and we want to keep it that way. We want other teachers to come through the system. We want people to want to be teachers. So I think all around we need to work on something better.
Okay, thank you. Well, it is time to sum up, make your pitch for what you would like, who you'd like this lovely audience to vote for. And may I just remind you that these are the voters. I don't vote in your district, so talk to them. And we will go in reverse order of your opening, which means we will start with Mr. O'Shea.
Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate it, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and Monmouth University for hosting the debate tonight. As was very evident from the responses, there's a clear distinction between us and our opponents. One just needs to look back at our records to see what you can expect for the future. As deputy mayor, I reduced property taxes in Ocean Township by 11% property tax rate, while my opponents rubber-stamped budgets in Neptune. During a population decrease, he expanded the size of government, increased appropriations by over 10%, and raised taxes by over 12%. He raided the township surplus and doubled the debt service. He voted to exceed the 2% COLA limit every single year in office. While he voted for a pay raise for his mayor himself, I voted against a pay raise for mine. During the budget negotiations, Senator Beck, Councilman Whalen, and I fought for fair funding for all the schools in our district. Our opponents voted yes on the Sweeney budget, which slashed over $2.1 million in 7 schools in our district while sending that money to Camden County. He even voted to slash $650,000 from his hometown's budget. In the Assembly, both of our opponents voted to raise the corporate business tax and gross income tax and have punted on many meaningful legislation to solve issues facing Monmouth County taxpayers. The best that they can come up with is a commission to review the problems. As I mentioned earlier, it's time to truly fix the property tax and education funding crisis. I have a proven record of working with both political parties to achieve results locally, and I plan on taking that to Trenton. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 7th. Unlike our opponents, I am not tied down to any special interest money. I guarantee you I will put the taxpayers of District 11 first. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you. Mr. Gopel?
Thank you. First of all, thank you to Monmouth University, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us, and to each and every one of you. I'm dying to know what the Yankee score is right now. I haven't looked at my phone, so to those of you who are also here at this critical Game 3, 0-0, thanks. It's great to be with all of you, and it's so great to see so many people, no matter who you're supporting, if you're undecided, that you're part of this political process. Somebody asked me as I was walking in, oh, you're going to see Senator Beck, you really must can't stand her. And it's the exact opposite. I actually don't even know Senator Beck personally, but I can tell you every encounter I've had with her, she's been respectful, she's been courteous, she's always been warm. And so my disagreements with her is based on issues. If Phil Murphy becomes the governor of New Jersey, I don't care if his approval rating is 10% or 90%. If he's doing something wrong, I'm going to work against him. If he's doing something right, I'm going to stand with him. If he's proposing to increase taxes, I'm going to fight him every step of the way. And we're going to look at cost savings. So my concern with the senator's record is even after we see tens of millions of dollars in Bridgegate legal fees, abuse at the Port Authority, legislation after legislation where he has brought New Jersey backwards, she still chose to serve as a co-chair of his presidential campaign last year. She could have backed Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio or anybody else. These are the type of issues that are concerning to me and that I think are concerning to the residents of the 11th District. When you have a legislation that the senator wrote and that she championed on guns, keeping guns out of those with mental health histories, and then the governor vetoes the bill and she votes against her very own legislation, I think that's troubling. I think the 11th Legislative District needs independent representatives and a freshness that we haven't seen in a while. And I give you my word and I promise I will work hard for you each and every day because I think our families in Monmouth County deserve it and I know our taxpayers do too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Hotelling.
Thank you, and
Oh, I'm sorry, it was Jennifer Beck.
All right.
So thank you again for the League's time and for all of the residents that took the time to come out to participate and get involved in your democracy. It's incredibly important and there is a lot at stake. I believe that I have been a very effective member of the state Senate, despite the fact that I've been a member of the minority party for my entire tenure. I've authored more than 70 bills, everything from keeping Sandy survivors out of foreclosure to helping sexual assault survivors get restraining orders, to getting the Shark River dredged, to getting the Ocean Grove boardwalk rebuilt, to providing Freehold, Borough, and Red Bank schools with additional resources on 4 different occasions, bringing in 5 different commissioners. I have stood up to the governor when it was the right thing to do, including when he tried to close Monmouth Park in 2010, and I went head-to-head with him on the issue of fracking, on the issue of women's health, on the issue of the Horizon bill, and on his book deal bill, and time and again, I have done what is right. I will tell you that I I don't know Vin personally, but I do have some concerns as we've gone through this campaign. I led the opposition to the single largest tax hike in New Jersey's history, the gas tax. At the beginning of this campaign, Vin Gopal said he would have voted against that. But as soon as special interests started spending thousands, maybe millions, on his behalf and negative TV ads, he suddenly has backed away from that position. As the Monmouth County Democrat chair, he called on other elected officials to come out and support higher income taxes on high income earners. Now today on NJTV and in the Asbury Park editorial board, he's saying, oh no, I really wouldn't do that. So when we look at caps on arbitration awards, and my opponent has said we need more data, all the data is present. It has kept property taxes increasing at a lower rate, 4% instead of 20%. Thank you. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate all the questions, and I look forward to seeing you.
Let's get everybody in before Mr. Hotelling,
Okay,
Eric Hotelling.
thank you. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, and again, this wonderful venue that we have here at Monmouth University. It's just great to be here and talk about the issues that everybody has heard. And I'm sure everybody realizes that the state of New Jersey has issues. We have a lot of issues, and in my mind, they're not political. They're problems that need to be solved, and we're willing to work hard to make these things happen. Through my time on the Agriculture Committee and some of the things that I've done, we've been able to do a lot of nonpartisan bills, and we've done a lot of good things for the state of New Jersey. $65 million to preserve open space for farmers, to make the third leading industry in the state of New Jersey. And every time we lose a farm, we're losing a great part of our economy. So there's a lot of things like that. Through the course of the 2 years that we've been on here, we've been to almost every 501(c)(3) we have in the state of New Jersey, in our 11th legislative district. We have been out there trying to find the problems that are existing in this town and things that we can do to help. And we have done that, and we're very proud, and we're going to continue to do those types of things. I ask you for your support. We have a great team here, Vin Gopal, Eric Hotelling, and Joanne Downey, and we'll change the 11th district. Will probably be one of the strongest districts in the state of New Jersey, all together, all working in one direction, all trying to make the state of New Jersey a better place to live. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. And now, Ms. Downey. We've got time.
I want to thank again the League of Women Voters, everyone who came out today, and Monmouth University. And why it's so important, because I tell this to people when I go and knock on their doors. We have a 20% voter turnout. That's terrible. We need people to be engaged. And that's why Eric and I also now have a bill that's out there to make civics a requirement in the school again. Because we really don't talk about it enough with our younger people. And we need to make sure they understand how a bill becomes a law. We've done that. We've gone to the actual State House to talk about this. Eric and I love to do that. We go to schools and try to teach them. But the important thing is I want to keep fighting for New Jersey. I want to keep fighting for our district. And that's what I do. As an attorney, I never felt like I was doing enough. And I had to I even went ahead and I keep wanting to learn. So I got my master's in social work because I wanted to find out how systems work and how we can do better for everyone. And I want to continue to do that. And we've done that. We've sponsored over 200 pieces of legislation each, Eric and I, as a team. And we've also had many of those become law. And we've worked on things between veterans issues to protect them, to make sure that people who are serving don't have their mortgages foreclosed on them. We wanted to make sure that we protect our seniors, as our seniors are our best asset. And we want to make sure that we protect them and take care of them. So we have an SOS program for constituent services that we have the best. I don't think anyone does it better. Our group over there makes sure that they know how to do the hiring freeze and things like that. I'll fight for gender equity, pay equity, because bottom line is it's important for all of us because it helps our economy and it helps each one of us, and we need to have our young women grow their self-esteem and show everybody that we're much more progressive than that. And we need to be able to do things to make sure that we protect our kids from gun violence. That is major, and we have a bill right now to stop the bump stocks, because that is not acceptable for a few clicks of a mouse and a few $100 that we can have a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon and kill what we saw in Nevada. We will stop all those things.
Thank you. And finally, we'll hear from Mr. Rand.
Thank you so much for having us. Piggyback on what Joanne said. When I'm at doors, people see me, they often ask, how are you in politics? Or why'd you get into politics? They look at me and they say, you're young. They assume that either my parents are in politics, my father was in politics, or my family comes from a lot of money. And I often say it's none of the above. If you actually ask my parents to name 2 politicians at any given time, they only know whoever the president is and their son. I didn't learn the political process growing up. I found this passion on my own. I found the passion to help serve and to help lead and to help be something, be part of something that's bigger than yourself. And that's what motivated me to get involved in my community in Red Bank, because the ability to help people. And that's why I'm in this. And this is my final message would be, I brought up the mass exodus, but I want to talk a little bit more about the millennials, as I am a millennial. We're in a self-identity crisis in New Jersey. We've lost 80,000 millennials since 2008 in New Jersey, while Pennsylvania gained 15,000 just in 2015. We are making less than our parents did at the exact same age. Once you take out all, obviously, the cost of inflation, relatively, we are making less than our parents. The cost of living is unaffordable. I want to buy my first home like everyone else does. But what are you getting? You're getting a small piece of property, and you're getting property taxes that you can't afford. So what are we going to do? If you don't evolve, you're going to get left behind. And that's why we have to create economic environments for businesses and families, not to just survive, but to thrive. And that's what I want to do when I get to the legislature with Senator Beck and Robert Schara. I'm humbled to be up here tonight, and I ask for your vote on November 7th. I'm part of an incredible team, and I'm even surrounded by even better people. So thank you so much, and I hope I'll earn your vote.
Thank you. Allow me a moment of league thank you. I want to thank the candidates for participating and saying yes to come and speak with and to their constituents, because that is one of the bedrocks of democracy. And we always appreciate when candidates will come out and share their views so that you really are informed voters. Thank you to the audience for your presence, your patience, your very good questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to them all. Thank you, of course, to the Ocean Township League, to the university for this beautiful venue, to the timekeepers, to the screeners, and most important, do not forget to vote on November 7th or by mail. We have applications to vote if you need to vote by mail. And if you are not a registered voter, you have just a few hours left, because tomorrow is the deadline. So make sure that you are prepared to vote. Bring a friend to vote. As it was stated earlier, we have a very poor record of percentage of voters. Let's make New Jersey a much higher percentage of engaged voters. And with that, you will be voting for 1 Senate seat and 2 Assembly seats. And at this point, please applaud and thank you.